This podcast is for you. Your co-hosts, Ben Dodge and Eric Huso at Effect Epic Consulting, believe that your potential is limitless. Tapping into this potential is how you can affect epic results in your life, relationships, and business. Welcome to the Principles of Epic Growth.
Good morning.
You beat me, brother.
I beat you to it. Good
Buenos
morning.
dias.
Good morning.
It's a great day to be alive.
It is a great day to be alive. That's an interesting thing to say on today's topic, too. It is. It is a great day to be alive.
That mindset can make it a great day.
That's right. Today we're going to talk about something that's pretty sensitive, I think, to a lot of people. Let's just put it out there. We're going to talk about depression. And we're going to discuss some of the principles that we've kind of discussed before and how they can help combat depression. In some cases, it could probably even prevent depression in your life or in the lives of others around you. Living these principles are powerful. But at the very least, it's something that can certainly help alleviate and provide relief in the lives of those of you that are suffering with depression, or maybe you have loved ones. I feel like, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, Eric, but I feel like everyone has either dealt with depression or has known someone who has dealt with depression. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those real common things, particularly in our day and age.
Yeah, it's a real thing today. Now, we're going to be the first ones to acknowledge we have two strikes against us. Number one is we're not professionals in this realm. We're not psychologists. We're not psychiatrists.
It's true.
And number two, neither one of us personally experienced depression on a clinical level. So we're the first ones to acknowledge that we have two strikes against us in this. However, with our experiences in life and working with people, we have seen how some of the principles that we're going to talk about today have made a difference in people that do. And so we're not trying to pretend like we're the experts here. What we're trying to do is open up possibilities that could help you if this is something you struggle with, or help you help a loved one or someone on your team who struggles with this. Give you some tools that could make a really, really big difference.
And so on the clinical depression side, I do think that that's a little bit skewed, only in the sense that so many people that struggle with depression don't go and get the help that they ought to get. And so the numbers, and I have some numbers that we'll discuss with you here in just a minute, but the percentage of people suffering with depression is probably a lot lower than reality, as indicated by some of these surveys. And so, yeah, none of us have dealt with it on a clinical level, but I think we've all dealt with depression, in some way or another. And one of the things that I think makes us really, it'll be fun today, Eric, to hash this out. So we never pre-run these guys, just so you know. Like, we just get on the mics and we start talking about it. Obviously, we prep and
we have a clear intention. Our intention is to serve you. Our intention is to give applications that you can put into your life and choices you can do that will make a big difference. That's what our podcast is Principles of Epic Growth.
That's right. So and we live these principles. We adhere to them. We do our best to learn from them as well, and to live them on a daily basis. And we prep these podcasts, with a lot of forethought. But we do not go back and edit, they're essentially recorded live. Like, we could probably just record these live. I mean, we've never once edited one of these things, and we've also never once just gone through these and like scripted them by any means. So I'm interested to see how today goes, because and I really hope that we don't frustrate or anger anyone. That's not our intention. Let me be really clear about that. Like, we're going to express some things that we believe can really help anyone who's struggling with depression. We're not by any means demeaning or diminishing anything that any of you might be struggling with. So, but we do believe that these principles can help. And if you take it with an open mind and really think about applying them in your life, or helping those around you that, and helping them apply them in their lives, like, you can find some relief from what is probably the most common mental illness in the United States. So, yeah, here's some stats. So most recently, let me get a date here. I'm not going to waste time trying to find the date on it, but I think it was in 2017, so this was last year. Looks like there are more than 16 million men and women affected with the diagnosis of some sort of depression. 6.7% of the adult population There's also 3.1 million adolescents or teenagers now suffering with depression. Women are 2 to 3 times more likely to deal with depression than men. People with depression are more likely to die from suicide as well from other illnesses such as heart disease. There's a lot of correlation now with depression and other illnesses. And there's different kinds of depression. There's some major depression that has some psychotic episodes involved. There's some other forms of depression where it could just be seasonal. There's a seasonal affective disorder, SAD, actually. It's interesting. It's a form of depression. It's usually like a wintertime thing for some people. There's postpartum.
For other people, it's the end of the football season.
That's right.
Yeah, February 15th is just a rough time because there's no football to watch.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
It could be a postpartum thing, right? After a baby's born, it could be a premenstrual thing, actually. There's all kinds of, right before, symptoms of depression can develop a week before. I mean, this is all in a fantastic article that we can link. But essentially, 19.4% of girls and 6.4% of boys, this is adolescents, have experienced major depression. This is a huge increase. So
we see it a lot in schools today. Specifically, we see a lot of increased anxiety in students. And I'm talking significant amounts of anxiety in young people where they just feel overwhelmed by the expectations that are placed upon them, and they haven't been given the experiences and or the tools to deal with the pressures of life yet. And so they're kind of, young people are pushed into the pressures of an adult world without having been given the experience and tools to deal with the pressures of the adult world. And we see it. I mean, it's through the roof anxiety that you just didn't see 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, the social media is one of the big evil dragons, so to speak, I think, that affect people in their self-image, their self-worth. And we're going to get into some of that. But I think one thing we should discuss real quick before we break into this is how can you tell if you're depressed, right? And again, we'll put links to this article in this particular podcast. It's a great article, but basically everyone will have times where they feel sad or discouraged or frustrated or worn out or hopeless. It's their kind of indication, though, is unless your life feels dominated by that. If that's something that you have, these negative feelings that you have on most days, they last for weeks on end sometimes, then that's a sign of depression. Yeah. If
it has a negative impact on your significant relationships, if it has a negative impact on your work, if it has a negative impact on your physical health, your appetite, your ability to sleep, etc.
Right. And it's simply, not simply, there's nothing simple about it, but it is definitely one of those things where it's sustained, right? So if those feelings feel like they're ongoing and they're sustained, then that's a sign of depression. Yeah. I think every human being will deal with those emotions. It's just how long you feel burdened by them is whether or not there is a sign of depression. So, all right, Eric, let's do it. How can we help? How can we prevent it? How can we fix it? I mean, those are bold words. I get that. Right. I get that we're suggesting that some of the things today are going to be things that can pull people out of depression and or prevent it altogether. But I really believe that. And, fine, I might be wrong, but look, it is what it is. We're going to talk about it because I think they're powerful principles.
I think a good analogy, Ben, as I've thought about this, is diabetes, okay? So you have two kinds of diabetes. You have type 1 diabetes, which used to be called juvenile onset diabetes. That's a condition simply where your body stops producing insulin, okay? So oftentimes juvenile onset because you're made aware of it in your youth. Then you have what used to be called adult onset diabetes, which is happening more and more in young people today, which is associated with syndrome X, where a person is overweight, inactive, they got high blood pressure, and so their body just has a hard time dealing with the insulin, and so you have spiked blood sugar with these people. So If you can think about diabetes in the term of in terms of depression, you've got people that have literal clinical issues here, and then you have people that are facing the rigors of life and are really struggling with it. And so the principles we're going to talk about today, we would never say to someone with type 1 diabetes, hey, just stop taking your insulin. Just tough it out and exercise and eat right and you'll be good. You'd never say that to someone with type 1 diabetes. I mean, that's foolish. And so we're not saying that. We're saying take your insulin and make sure that you're exercising. Make sure that you're eating right. And for those with type 2 diabetes, let's get the extra weight off. Let's get the extra weight off. It's amazing what happens. You can get rid of type 2 diabetes with exercise and with a change in your diet. You can lower your blood sugar, you can lower your blood pressure, you can lower your cholesterol, you can get rid of all those syndrome X things. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is, for those that need to take insulin, you take your insulin. But we're going to talk about here, we're going to exercise and we're going to eat right and we're going to change some lifestyle things that are going to have a significant impact on your health.
Essentially what you're saying is there's some physiological factors, right, to depression, to some of these major things that potentially require psychiatry and potential medication or
exactly.
whatnot. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So look, no matter what level of depression you're dealing with, these principles are going to provide some relief for you. And in some, if not a lot of cases, they're going to be able to help you get out of it and or prevent it altogether.
So I'm going to tell a personal story. Okay. So like I said, I neither Ben nor I really suffer from depression. However, there was one period in my life where I went through a really, really hard time where, debatable whether or not you'd say I was in a depressed state. And it was a challenging time because I had had some impressions that I've spoken about earlier to do a career change. And I was dragging my feet through that. And it had been 3 years earlier that I had had these impressions to do a career change. And it just took me a long time to actually act on that. And so I wasn't as happy at work as I used to be. I wasn't finding the fulfillment in work that I used to find because I wasn't where I knew I was supposed to be. Like I was kind of violating that internal alignment with where I felt I needed to be. We ended up taking a job transfer out of state, and then in that time where we were away from family and friends, my father passed away. And we ended up moving back to Arizona, and I did a career change, and then my oldest son left for a 2-year mission. And in that time, there was just so much of the pressures of life on me that I was not happy. I was in a fog. I was just, I was down. I was down.
How long? How long did you feel that way?
About a year and a half, where I wasn't, and it was up and down. It wasn't a constant thing, but the time period that I just described was a year and a half time period. And I was working with one of my best friends. We were great friends in high school, Brandon Craig. And he invited me to this leadership conference that we went to together. And in that leadership conference, we discussed these very principles that we're going to talk about today. And that was what changed everything for me. Like the waking up to the power of integrity, the waking up to the power of commitment, the waking up to the reality of what happens when you're in alignment and when you're out of alignment, the power of authenticity. Like these were the principles that got me out of that mess, where I was able to make significant choices that led me out of that dark stage, if you will.
Sure. Okay, let's talk about them. Authenticity. So in my huge opinion, I didn't mean to say it that way. That was
you do have huge opinions.
I do have, living large here. Listen, in my opinion, authenticity is one of the biggest contributors to people who struggle with depression. Specifically that they're living inauthentically, right? And so if you ever live inauthentically, then you're not living true to yourself. And so let's talk about that. Like, let's break down authenticity a little bit, because the more authentic choices you can make about yourself, the less you're going to struggle with some of these issues that dominate, negative feelings, some of these depressive kinds of mindsets. And so, what is authenticity?
So, authenticity is, you are being real. When in the art world, you have an authentic piece of art. It's not a fake that is out there. It's not a replica. It's not a cheap imitation. It's the real thing that you have put your heart and soul into, that has the greatest value, that you would protect. If you had a cheap piece of art out there, you're not going to protect it so much as if you had the authentic piece of art out there. You're going to display it, and you're going to protect it, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to cherish it. Every time you walk by that piece of art, it's going to put a smile on your face, and it's going to create that satisfaction of, wow, that is a beautiful piece of work. And when you're living authentically, that's your life. Like, the way that you live your life just puts a smile on your face. It's real. It's your best work. It's not a fake. It's not a replica. It's not a duplicate. You're not trying to be anybody else. You are true to who you are, and you love it, and you're proud of it, and it just brings a sense of joy and satisfaction.
Yeah. So we all know those people. I love this phrase that I'm going to say in a minute. We all know these people who march to the beat of their own drum, right? And we use that phrase common in talking about people and friends or whatnot, and associates or people we've met. And we're like, that guy's a little strange. He just marches to the beat of his own drum. And that's, I always perk up when I hear that, and I want to meet that person. That's a person who's living authentically. They're just doing what they know to be them, essentially, right? And what makes them happy. And people who live authentically are less concerned with judgments of others and opinions of others about themselves or what they're doing, because they're trying to be authentic to themselves. And so a really good example is, let's assume that, hypothetical, let's assume that I can't stand, the sound of heavy machinery, but I go into a job where all day long I'm around heavy machinery, and in a way I'm being inauthentic there. That's something that I really don't like and I can't stand. Or better yet, like accounting. I hate math. I hate accounting. The last thing on earth you'll ever see me do is go take a job as an accountant, right? It's not going to happen. And that's a form of authenticity. So social media is one of the biggest offenders here. Most people will post little glimpses of pictures of themselves doing something with some hashtag and some, a couple of comments, as if that's real life for them all the time. And what's really funny? So just recently I was in France and I was in Paris, and I saw this American tourist, this girl. She was taking these selfies of herself. She spent 15 minutes trying to get the right selfie. She changed her makeup twice. She changed positions all the way around this little cafe table. I was sitting there in awe going, are you serious? It's that important to you that it looks a certain way before you post it up there? So just think about that, guys. If you're even kind of listening right now, pay attention to the authenticity principle. You have to live true to you. So let's explain what that means, because whenever you're inauthentic, you're gonna face walls, and you're gonna run into walls that are resistance, essentially, for what's true to you, and those walls are gonna be depressive. They're going to be discouraging. It's going to be disheartening sometimes. You're going to feel hollow. You're going to feel empty. Just like if you really got a victory doing something that you didn't really care about, who cares, right? Have you ever won something that you didn't care about winning, or do really well in something that you actually didn't really care about? It doesn't matter. The victory is hollow. Sometimes in work environments, people are competitive, and they beat each other out on a project, and they won and they didn't really care because they ruined a friendship in the meantime, and they realized that the friendship was something that was more important to them, not the actual being the winner at work. And so, I mean, just there's so many examples in our society today of people who choose to be inauthentic and or to believe inauthentic stuff in others, with social media. And so, what does it mean to be true to yourself?
Let's add another principle then to answer that question, and that is you have to be really clear on what you're committed to. Okay? You use the analogy of somebody who marches to the beat of their own drum. So in a musical organization, that's the last thing you want. You don't want all these rogue drummers, okay? You can imagine being a conductor of an orchestra and having a rogue percussion where everyone's marching to the beat of their own drum. So that's why you gave the example of why would I ever work in a place that has machinery, or if I hate machinery? Why would I ever go be an accountant if I hate crunching numbers like that? And so that's where you've got to get really clear on what you're committed to. Like if you want to be a part of a great symphony, like you have to be committed to keep your eyes on the conductor and follow the conductor's direction. Like you can't go off and march to the beat of your own drum. But if you want to be a one-man rock band, and that's what you're committed to, and that's like the epic musical experience for you, then yeah, like go buy your drum set, put it in your garage, and get GarageBand out and start recording. And you can do that. So that's why you have to get really clear on what you're committed to. Like, do you want to be the one-man garage band? Do you want to be a part of the symphony? And if everyone's telling you, hey, be a part of the symphony, that's the greatest thing, and in your mind you're like, that's like the most boring thing in the world. Like I want to be in the garage. Then you get your butt in the garage. But you got to be clear on what you're committed to. Because if you haven't done the homework to get clear on what you're committed to, then you are going to be vulnerable to comparisons of other people in social media. Like you're going to see everybody else's social media, and you're going to see them in the symphony, and you're going to be like, oh, I got to get in the symphony. And that's just like, oh, I can't stand the symphony. Or you're going to see everybody in the garage, and like, what am I doing in the symphony? Like everyone's in the garage. And you're going to compare yourself, and that comparison is going to cause you to make choices where you'll live inauthentically. So you've got to be clear on what you're committed to. If you have not done the effort to write down what you're committed to, you are at risk. You're at risk.
Yeah, so let's drill that down. So it's also, did Shakespeare say, is he the one that said, know thyself?
No, that was
Socrates.
Bill Taylor was Socrates, yeah. Socrates. Yeah.
Socrates, yeah. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, great movie.
No, so I think even deeper than knowing what you're committed to, you should know you. There should be some time and some reflection into what makes you you. What's your core values? Core values might be a little bit different than what you're committed to, but they can certainly lead you to what you want to commit to. But what are your core values? For example, if you believe in God, but you go to a country and live there for a few years, as a guest, and they don't believe in any God, and you kind of feel forced to, like, in their culture to, like, stop, believing in God, you're going to feel completely inauthentic. Mm-hmm. And it's going to lead to some of these feelings of sad, hopeless, frustrated, worn out, tired, whatever, like all these things that are signs of depression, right? And so again, the principle, of course, is to live authentically, which is going to require you to know you, know yourself, know what your core values are, from things that you believe in, from things that make you happy to make you you. And I know as a sad and depressed state that some of you might be in, to think about things that make you happy might feel just awkward. But listen, you can choose to think about things. It doesn't have to make you happy in the moment. But you can make the choice to think about what can make you happy. You can also choose to think about what makes you you. What are the core values that you believe in? Like I like to put it in cheeseball language and cheeseball examples because it's helpful for people, and then you can apply those principles on a deeper level in your own life. But it could be as simple as politics, and I'm not a politician or a politically minded guy. But it's like, are you a Democrat or Republican or independent? Like, what makes you you? Just think about your core values. Where, do you believe in God? Do you not believe in God? Simple kind of things that are a little more global. Start to identify who you are at the core. Like, what are your values? And then you can be authentic to those. And then once you're clear in your commitments, like Eric's talking about, now we're talking about being in alignment with those. Yeah. Living in alignment with those and living authentically are similar. But you want to live in alignment with your commitments for sure. But live authentically and always do that. And know that most people around you aren't. So the whole comparative thing, if you're living authentically and you have a healthy dose of self-worth and self-esteem and self-confidence, all three of those are somewhat similar but different, then you're not going to worry about what other people's opinions are of you. So social media and what you see in regular mainstream media on TV and news and whatever else in movies, like all of that stuff is going to have less of an impact. It'll literally be more entertaining to you than real. It'll be more funny and goofy than real. And you have to check yourself, because sometimes you think things are entertaining, but you're actually believing that that's actually real. So I think live authentically is one of the absolute huge things that you can do.
Yeah. And we brought this up a couple times now, this idea of social media and the comparisons that happen. So if you're somebody who struggles with depression, you might want to make the choice, not be forced to, but you might want to consider, be open to the possibility to choose to disconnect from all social media. Like, eliminate that pressure from your life, and eliminate that comparison from your life.
Right now, people are screaming in their cars listening to this podcast. What did he say?
And the other half are saying, yeah, do it. Yeah.
Blood pressure's rising.
Consider disconnecting. Don't be forced to do it, but make it be your choice. Because another principle that will help you if you're feeling feelings of depression is recognizing the power of choice. Hopelessness comes from not having choice. Power, hope, comes from having choice. The power is always in the choice. And so if you're in a relationship where you feel hopeless, it's likely because you don't feel like you have any choice. You probably feel stuck. If you're in a career where you feel hopeless, it's probably because you feel like you don't have any choice. Like, I have to have this job. Like, I have all these bills and I have to have this job. I can't afford to not have this job. And so you have essentially given up choice. You've given up your power. And we can go on, but there's power in choice, and choice brings hope. And so if you look in your life where you have given up your choice, you'll see some things where you could increase your level of joy and hope if you'll take back your power, take back your choice.
So that's a good transition into the next one, and that's to choose hope.
Mm-hmm.
The next principle we'll discuss is choosing hope. I love what you said about giving up your choice, your power of choice. People don't realize that they do that. So many of us feel stuck. I need this job. I can't quit because I have to pay the bills or whatnot. And you might be right. Yeah, you probably do need to pay the bills, and you probably do need that job to pay that. But why not create another alternative for you in the meantime, right? Like, it doesn't mean you have to just sell everything and go live in a motorhome for a year and travel the country like a hippie.
That'd be fun.
That'd be so fun. But that's not what we're saying, right? So choose hope. And that starts with one simple principle of, if there's breath in your lungs, in other words, if you've got a heartbeat and you're living, then you've got power of choice. Always. You can choose.
That's the one thing as a human being that can never be taken away from you. We've referenced Viktor Frankl multiple times on this podcast.
That's right.
If you've never read that book, you've got to read that book if this is something that you're dealing with.
That's right.
You always have choice if you're a human being.
Yeah. So in this instance, let's be clear, we're not saying that you can choose instantly to not be depressed. But you can choose to live some of these principles and to apply them that will then start helping you climb out of what depressive state you might be feeling in. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's a huge difference there. So choose something to hope in. It could be someone, but it's, just something or someone greater than yourself. Okay. So one of the things that's awesome about hope is it's not selfish, really. So you're thinking outside yourself. You're thinking of something or someone greater than yourself, and you're choosing to hope in that. For some of you, that might be, a belief or a hope in a deity like a God. For others of you, it might be a hope that you can actually get that job that you really want, or that you can actually go on that vacation that you really want, or you can, make the kind of money that you really want. Whatever it is, choose something to hope in. Choose hope, because you can have the worst, most miserable day on the planet. And it's just that much less miserable when you have something to hope in. So choose hope. And then, again, take time to reflect. Like, what is it that you hope in? This will go back to what we talked about earlier when Eric was mentioning commitments. When you have commitments, things that you're committed to, and you're living in alignment with those commitments, then you can express hope in those, like in the outcomes of those commitments. And there's a balancing act there about, focusing on just an outcome, because outcomes are often out of our control sometimes. But yeah, choosing hope will minimize the burden of what you feel on a day-to-day basis. Like, it's not that you won't have a burden per se, it's just that it'll be minimized because you're living with hope. We all know people who are hopeless, don't we? Like, I think, even there's a In-N-Out Burger nearby by Santan Mall, and my son loves In-N-Out Burger only because it's one of the few places on the planet that has real French fries, like real potatoes. Mm-hmm. And so with all of his medical issues, he can only have real potatoes, and they have to be fried in a certain kind of oil. And that's like one of the few restaurants that does that doesn't cross-contaminate by doing onion rings and everything else in there. And the kind of oil is not the best, but it's okay. So anyway, every time we go there, there's usually a bum, looking for, a handout nearby. And it's like they cycle through. There's different ones, but the same ones. But it's like they take turns. It's like they have a schedule almost, or whoever gets there first. I'm not sure. And when you drive by and you look at their face, like, even some of them actually have hope. And more often than not, they don't. And you can see it. That's an extreme example of somebody who's living a really hopeless life. They're very possible that they're addicted to who knows what, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Maybe not. Very possible they just had a huge run of bad luck, potentially just a bunch of bad luck, and now they're literally without a home, and they're standing there on the corner, and they just head down, hand out, and that's it. That's their existence. Others are actively engaged and coming up to the windows, smiling, offering to maybe even clean your window sometimes. Like, look, I'm not saying that that's a pleasant or comfortable experience, but in a hope perspective, you can see even in the people that have almost the most hopeless existence, some of them have hope. And that's something that we can see in our own day-to-day lives as just human beings right here in the United States, right? Or wherever you are listening to this. So, but choose hope. It won't necessarily take the burden away, but it'll make it feel less of a burden. Yeah.
Awesome. Another principle that can help us is the principle of integrity, where you honor your word. There's in one of my favorite books, The 4 Agreements, in the first agreement with honor your word, he describes sin as when you sin against yourself. And anytime that you sin against yourself, that creates unwanted feelings. And so if you are really clear when you give your word that you are committed to keeping your word, and when you can't keep your word, you honor your word by cleaning up that mess, you will wipe away half the experiences of your life that you cause messes that bring feelings of sadness, of remorse, of regret, that will put you in a state where you feel hopeless. And so one of the most important choices you can make is choose to honor your word. Choose to be a person of integrity. Keep your word. In fact, that's the number one choice that you can make that will help you deal with the problems of life. You're not going to have a life that's not without trial. Life is chaotic, right? But if you will be committed to be a person of your word, then you're going to eliminate half the messes that will come into your life that would cause you to feel bad.
Yeah, integrity is such a huge one. It's such a huge one. I mean, if you can't live in integrity, how can you really have any sustainable happiness?
You can't.
I mean, it's really like it's the same with authenticity. How can you have anything sustainable when it's fake? And with integrity, how can you ever really have sustainable happiness when you're a person that can't be counted on? You're a person that can't show up on time. You're a person that says you're going to do something and then you can't. So you're constantly letting people down around you, right? Like, I mean, there's so many ripple effects of everything when you're out of integrity. When
you're out of integrity, you're going to overcommit. You know, you're going to give your word to too many. This is for a good person who is quote unquote a good person that's out of integrity. They've most likely overcommitted. They've given their word that they'll do this and they'll do that, and there's not enough time in the day to do this and to do that. So they either don't do it or they shortchange it and they put forth shoddy work. And so if you're out of integrity, you're obviously not clear on what you're committed to, then you're going to live inauthentically. You're going to be out of alignment. Like it's just going to have an impact on every one of these other principles that we've talked about. And so you've got to be a person of integrity. You've got to commit to keeping your word. That might mean that you cut things out of your life, right? So right now I'm listening to this audiobook, really good, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Halfway through it right now. When I ride my bike, I listen to it. And he's talking about how, you've got to be really clear and get rid of the clutter in your life that causes you to not have the time, not have the energy, not have the focus, not have the commitment on the things that matter the most.
Yep, integrity. Another good one is accountability.
Talk to me about that.
I love accountability. Most people, when they first hear that word, they think it's negative. They think, oh man, like it's either having to hold someone accountable or having to be
being held accountable.
Yeah. And so but it's not. Accountability is so much more than that. Another way to put that is ownership. And of course, from the Navy SEAL book that we all love, Extreme Ownership, right? By Jocko and Leif. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Yeah. Accountability is essentially changing your mindset from a victim mindset to an ownership mindset. Yep. It's not blaming somebody or something when something goes wrong. It's just owning it. It's being accountable to yourself and everybody else around you. It's so that other people can count on your abilities, right? And like we mentioned that in another podcast recently about accountability. But I love accountability because it's like a bedrock foundation for preventing, I think, a lot of things that could otherwise cause depression in someone's life. When you're not blaming others or the circumstances or the economy or the government or who knows what, like if you're not blaming others and or circumstances around you for where you're at and what you're doing, then you're already in a far better place. You can just own what's happening, and when you own it, you can fix it. But if it's somebody else's problem, guess what? You can't fix.
You have no choice.
Right?
You're powerless. You're a victim.
Exactly.
There's nothing that you can do.
So own it. Make it your own problem, and then you can fix it. And so I love accountability. Accountability is one of those things that it's a huge emotional maturity thing. And there's a lot of adults that will die on this earth without really ever reaching or living, the accountability standard that I'm talking about. But it really will prevent a lot of the circumstances that can otherwise lead someone to feel depressed if they would just have more accountability in their lives and live accountable.
You mentioned our accountability podcast. It is probably my personal favorite.
Wow.
We learn from these things ourselves, right?
Yeah, we do.
And a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to the accountability podcast. I'm like, man, that's good stuff.
Look at you.
That's really good stuff. I should probably listen to this once a week. Like this principle of accountability is so powerful. This principle of accountability will be the tool that will give you your choice back. So if you feel hopeless because you've given up your choice, you're probably in a victim mindset. You've probably cast accountability on other people. And so accountability will help you restore the power of choice. It will help you be a person that can be counted on, where people can count on your abilities. It will get you out of the victim mindset back into the growth mindset. And you will be liberated from unmet expectations of other people. So Stephen R. Covey said that most human frustration comes from unmet expectations. So rather than having expectations on other people, you'll be able to make agreements with other people. Rather than being frustrated by people letting you down, you will not see accountability as a weapon to use against other people, but you'll see it as a tool where you can, by demonstration, your embracing of accountability can help them, can inspire them to also embrace accountability, where they can be people that can be counted on as well. So accountability kind of really is wrapping paper. That if we're going to use this package, all these principles we're going to put in this package, and accountability will kind of wrap things up if this is something that you're struggling with.
Heck yeah. Definitely. It's going to help. Again, it's going to help prevent a whole bunch. It really will. Just own it. I was talking to a young person the other day who came from a family that didn't have a lot of money. And this person was really angry that they didn't get the opportunity to go to college because their parents didn't have money. And you can imagine my thought process there. Those of you that know me, like, that sounds like a bunch of excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you be accountable to the fact that you chose not to go to work and pay for college yourself? Why are you blaming your parents or your little city you came from and the circumstances of everyone that's gone before you? Why are you comparing yourself to somebody else that has a bunch of money and making it sound like their life is easier just because they have to go to college and somebody paid for it? Like, that's like, you're missing the boat. Like, that's a bunch of crap. Like, I have zero sympathy or empathy, whatever, for you. Like, fact matter is be accountable to the fact that you're choosing with your own free agency not to create the circumstances for you to be able to go to college, whatever they may be.
So this is where that person can really apply these principles. They need to really get clear on what they're committed to. Are they committed to having a career that's going to require a college education? If they are committed to a career that's going to require a college education, they got to make sure that they're being authentic, that they're not just wanting to go to college because that's what everybody else does, and they're not going to just go and waste time and thousands of dollars in tuition when they don't even know if that degree is going to support the career that they're really committed to and they want to do. And so you've got to get really clear on what your intentions are with going to college, and then you've got to restore your power of choice by being accountable. Like, well, why didn't I get a scholarship to go to college? And then take the growth mindset of, okay, so I didn't get a scholarship right now. What scholarship opportunities are for me post high school? What opportunities can I gain right now through scholarships or grants, etc., to now that I am committed to go to college, I know what I want. This is the career that I want. It's in alignment. It's authentic, and I'm all in. I'm going. And you don't need your mom and dad. Like, in fact, having your mom and dad pay for it would maybe cheapen the experience. Like, you didn't want that.
Yeah, no, it's all accountability. Just the point, of course, was it was just blaming, right? Just blaming, not taking responsibility for where this person was. Other principle is belief. Believing in possibilities, believing in yourself. Those are the two biggest ones. Some of us believe in something bigger than ourselves, like a God. I do. I totally believe in God. It's neither here nor there for most of you, but listen, belief is a powerful principle. You can have a hard day, but when you choose to hope, if you can have something to believe in. So I believe in possibilities. I'm a person who does not believe that options are always gone. There's always something out there, and I'll just think about it longer or work harder and I'll figure something out, but there's always options. In other words, there's always choices. I believe in that. I believe in possibilities, and I believe in myself. And I love the Hindu thing, and I know I've shared it before, but it's a great little analogy or story about belief in yourself. There's a Hindu legend out there, and the Hindu legend goes something like this: that a long time ago, as human beings, we had the power of the gods, and we abused them, and so the greater gods took that power from us, and they had to hide it somewhere so that we wouldn't find it and abuse it again. And so they discussed it in their little council about where they can hide it from us so that we wouldn't find it, because we would probably do anything to find this power. And so they talked about hiding it high in the sky. Oh, they would build a tower, then find it. Okay, let's bury it deep in the earth. And, one of the other gods is like, no, they'll dig. I mean, they'll dig forever for treasure, right? Okay, well then let's take a look at putting it in the sea. Oh, okay, well then, they'll probably figure out a way to like swim down or build a submarine or something. We really gotta hide it somewhere where they'll never look, where it's too hard to get in. It's something that they would just never consider looking, a place that they would never consider looking. And so they decided that they can just hide it inside us, like deep inside our own soul, and we would never take the time to look there or do the work necessary to reveal it. And I love that legend, because the power, to be godlike, so to speak, in this legend is already within us. In other words, you're already a rock star, and you just need to believe it.
Yeah.
So believe that your potential is incredible. I mean, I've seen athletes do incredible things with, half the body limbs that I have, right? Either missing arms or legs. I just saw a video the other day on the internet where this lady with one arm was playing a violin with a prosthetic arm on the other side. And it was awesome. And she had to like swing her shoulder and flip her shoulder around to kind of make that prosthetic little thing move, and that's what held the bow. And she held the violin with her good hand, and she did the bow with her prosthetic one, and it was, she was almost convulsing a little bit while playing, but she played, and she played it well. So like it doesn't matter how broken you think you are. It doesn't matter how bad you think you have it. Chances are you do have it bad, and you probably are broken. We all are in some way. But if you can believe in yourself, believe that you have this incredible power, because you do, and then believe in the possibilities. Just the principle, the fact that there's possibilities always out there. Believe in them, find them. That belief will sustain and carry you through a lot of dark times.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer in what you just talked about with belief and faith. Faith is a principle that has had a tremendous impact in my life. Faith in myself, faith in other human beings and the goodness of human beings. And as you mentioned, faith in higher power, faith in a God. That I have experienced the power of faith, and it is a real thing. Faith is a principle of action. Every single action we take is based in faith. The reason why we are comfortable getting in a car and driving down the road is we have faith that those double yellow lines will keep other people in their lane. The reason why we'll go through a green light is because we have faith. The red light on the other side will keep people from going through the intersection. The reason why we brush our teeth is because we have faith that that action will prevent cavities.
Or because you're married to a dental hygienist like I am, yeah. And she gets angry.
Yeah. The reason why we go to sleep is because we have faith that the sun will come up. If we didn't think the sun would come up the next day, we wouldn't have the courage to go to sleep that night. So literally every action that we take is rooted in faith. Faith is a power that will move us to act and to choose. And so if accountability is the wrapping paper of all these things, faith is the foundation of all these things. Like you take away faith and you lose your power of choice. You take away faith and you're not committed to a cause greater than yourself. You take away faith, et cetera, et cetera. So faith is a critical element to all of these things and can bring you great power and great satisfaction.
Yeah. And so given the time, we'll see how many principles we can go through, but there's at least one more I'd like to discuss, and that's the if-then mindset. Manage your if-then mindset. Too many of us, and this is closely associated with entitlement, but think about it in an if-then context. If I do college, then I'll get the kind of job that I've always wanted. And then if I get the job that I always wanted, then I'll make, $100,000 a year. Then you start making $100,000 a year. Well, now you want more. If I make $100,000 a year and my neighbor makes $150,000, then if I work harder, then maybe I can make more than him. And if then. it really reeks sometimes of, if you do something, then you deserve something else.
Yeah.
And that's not real life. Like, real life is you work hard every day and you create your own future, and that may or may not go as planned. But in the pursuit of it, you can find happiness. And there is a huge like principle there that people overlook. The pursuit of your dreams is what's incredible. Reaching them is the cherry on top. But think about it. If you just had that whole entire banana split or ice cream sundae, it was probably pretty good. Like, the cherry on top, that's like the last thing. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sometimes that's great. But in terms of depression, manage your if-then mindset. Be wary or mindful of what you think you deserve. Because
more than manage it, try to eliminate it. If-then mindset sets you up for failure. It sets you up to be motivated by carrots and sticks. It sets you up where you're just doing something for the external reward. You're doing something to look good. You're doing something so you don't get in trouble. You're doing something so you don't get busted or disciplined. Like, it takes away all the joy of every action. If I do this, then I got... No. Like, do things because you are authentically committed to it. Do things because it aligns with your values, and do things because it brings you joy and satisfaction. The if-then thing, that's all about extrinsic motivators. Extrinsic motivators take the joy out of living. They take the joy out of relationships.
It's true.
Like, eliminate that as much as possible in your life.
But it's okay to have goals. It's okay to set goals. So some people with an if-then mindset will defend this by saying, what about goals? Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is different. We're talking about if-then in the sense of what you think you deserve, because you live in an if-then mindset of what you might deserve, or what you think will happen no matter what because you did, X, Y, Z. You should be careful about that. Like, there are no certain guaranteed outcomes, right? And so focus more on the pursuit of what you're committed to. Even in our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, there's some great, beautiful language about what everybody's entitled to. And I hate the word entitled, but
it's the one place where it's okay.
I love it. I love it there. And the pursuit of happiness is something that's pretty powerful, but it's the pursuit that makes you happy. It's really cool. There's nothing wrong with setting goals and getting to reach them. There's nothing wrong with having your ice cream and then getting to the cherry, or having your cake and eating it too. Absolutely. Destinations are awesome. It's great to work towards something and actually achieve it. It's very satisfying. Just don't place everything in just the destination. It's the pursuit of something. And so if you think about it, you set a goal. Have you ever seen somebody who worked really hard, worked for that one marathon or that one goal, whatever it is their goal was, and then they got it, and then they stopped and did nothing after that? Yeah. So again, the whole if-then thing, or goal destination mindset, it's constant. You need to be constantly engaged in the pursuit of what you're committed to. And when you reach your commitments, set new ones. Some commitments are lifelong, some are not, so just manage those, be mindful of them, be awake to them. But I would say manage your if-then mindset, or eliminate it altogether when it comes to deserving and entitlements, because you gotta be really careful, and guaranteed outcomes aren't there. So focus on the pursuit of happiness. There's inspired language in our founding fathers for sure.
Beautiful. So to wrap things up, we have talked about all kinds of principles, and in these principles, we've identified choices that each one of us can make. Your power is in your choice. And if you are feeling hopeless, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, it's likely that you've had your choice taken away. And so reclaim that power of choice. You're a human being. You're alive. You have choice. You can choose a growth mindset. You can choose to be intrinsically motivated. You can choose what you're committed to. You can choose if you're going to be authentic. You can choose if you're going to be in alignment. You can choose if you're going to be a person of integrity and honor your word. You can choose to embrace accountability. These are all choices that you can make. And restore the power of choice. Focus on where you've given up your choice. And if you'll reclaim that power of choice, with it will come hope. And with that hope, that commitment to act on those choices.
Yeah, liberate yourselves. Go live a free life, free of these negative feelings that dominate your days, start being authentic, or at least more authentic, right? Yeah. Like, start being a little more committed, all these things, more integrity, more this and that. And that is something that you can choose to start to do a little more of. And just remember that maybe today's goal is just to be a little bit better today than you were yesterday. When you start living these principles, and you'll watch yourself climb out. And in the long run, one of the things I firmly believe is this is all preventative as well. The more of these that you live, and the more consistently you live them, the less likely you'll ever even encounter some of these things that you may be depressed with. Your life will just be completely different. You'll feel completely in control and in power of everything, even though when you're completely out of control.
Yep. It's
amazing. It's a wonderful feeling.
And stop comparing yourself to other people. If you have to disconnect from your social media, do it now, right? Stop comparing. That will suck the joy out of life faster than anything else. Stop comparing.
Incredible. Have a great day, everyone. Right. Thanks for all your comments. We love your feedback. It's always good. And stay tuned. We got some good stuff in the works. We got some guest speakers actually coming up pretty soon too.
It's going to be good.
Epic.
It's going to be good. Adios.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Principles of Epic Growth podcast, your path to epic performance and life with incredible growth.